Imagine putting your 3-year-old daughter to bed after a happy family vacation. You check on her once. Then again. Everything seems normal. But when you return just minutes later, she's gone. No broken window. No sign of a struggle. No ransom note. Only an empty bed. How could a child disappear from a holiday apartment without anyone seeing or hearing anything? Nearly 2 decades later, investigators are still searching for answers. The disappearance of Madeleine McCann remains one of the world's most well-known missing child cases. It has involved police forces from multiple countries, generated thousands of leads, and sparked intense public attention. Yet despite years of investigation, many questions remain unanswered. This is the story of what happened in Praia da Luz, Portugal, on the night of May 3, 2007, and why the search for Madeleine continues to matter today. In the spring of 2007, the McCann family traveled from England to the seaside resort of Praia da Luz on Portugal's Algarve coast. The family consisted of Gerry McCann, a cardiologist, his wife Kate McCann, a physician, and their 3 young children, Madeleine, who was nearly 4 years old, and 2-year-old twins Sean and Amelie. The holiday was intended to be relaxing. The McCanns were part of a larger group of friends who had also traveled with their families. During the day, they enjoyed the beach, swimming pools, tennis, and children's activities organized by the resort. Photographs taken during those days show Madeleine smiling, playing, and enjoying time with her family. One image, taken beside the resort's swimming pool shortly before her disappearance, would later become one of the most recognized photographs in the world. Nothing about the trip suggested that it would become the focus of one of the largest missing person investigations in modern history. Praia da Luz was known as a peaceful holiday destination. Located on Portugal's southern coast, the town attracted families from across Europe. Quiet streets, restaurants, holiday apartments, and beaches created an atmosphere that many visitors considered safe. The McCanns stayed in a ground-floor apartment at the Ocean Club Resort. The apartment was only a short walk from the resort's tapas restaurant, where members of their group planned to eat dinner together each evening. Instead of hiring a babysitter, the adults agreed on a system they believed would allow them to enjoy dinner while still supervising their children. Each family would leave their sleeping children in their apartments and return at regular intervals to check on them. According to witness accounts provided during the investigation, these checks were intended to take place roughly every 20 to 30 minutes. At the time, the arrangement did not seem unusual to the group. They believed the apartments were nearby and that frequent checks would ensure the children remained safe. No one imagined how important those decisions would later become. Thursday began like any other vacation day. Madeleine attended children's activities offered by the resort while her parents participated in tennis and spent time with friends. Throughout the day, nothing appeared out of the ordinary. As evening approached, the family returned to their apartment. The children were bathed, changed into pajamas, and prepared for bed. By around 8:30 p.m., Madeleine and her younger siblings were asleep in the bedroom. The adults then left for dinner at the nearby tapas restaurant. From their table, they could not see directly into the apartment, making the scheduled checks an important part of their plan. Over the next hour, members of the group took turns leaving the restaurant to look in on their children. Each check seemed routine. Nothing immediately suggested danger. Then, shortly after 10 p.m., everything changed. Kate McCann walked back toward the apartment expecting another ordinary check. As she entered the children's bedroom, something felt wrong. The bedroom door was open farther than expected. The window was also open. The shutters had been raised. Madeleine's blanket remained on the bed. But Madeleine herself was gone. At first, Kate searched the apartment, hoping her daughter had somehow wandered into another room. Within moments, panic replaced confusion. She rushed back toward the restaurant calling for help. The family and their friends immediately began searching the surrounding area. Other holidaymakers joined them. Staff members from the resort were alerted. Police were contacted. What had begun as an ordinary holiday evening had transformed into a desperate search for a missing child. As the hours passed, investigators faced a question that would define the case for years to come. Did Madeleine leave the apartment on her own? Or had someone taken her? That question would lead to one of the most extensive international missing person investigations ever conducted. The first few hours after a person goes missing are often the most critical. Investigators know that time can preserve, or erase, vital evidence. Witnesses' memories are freshest, surveillance footage may still exist, and physical clues have the best chance of remaining undisturbed. On the night of May 3, 2007, every minute mattered. Yet as panic spread through the Ocean Club resort in Praia da Luz, no one knew exactly what had happened inside apartment 5A, or when Madeleine McCann had disappeared. Shortly after 10 p.m., Kate McCann discovered that Madeleine was missing. According to statements later given to investigators, she immediately searched the apartment before running back toward the nearby tapas restaurant to alert her husband and their friends. Within moments, dinner ended. Everyone rushed toward the apartment. At first, they hoped Madeleine had wandered away. The group searched nearby pathways, gardens, swimming pools, and surrounding streets while repeatedly calling her name. As more people learned that a child was missing, the search quickly expanded. Resort employees joined in. Holidaymakers left restaurants to help. Flashlights swept across bushes, parking areas, and nearby fields. Some searched the beach. Others checked abandoned buildings and dark corners around the resort. But there was no sign of Madeleine. Portuguese police were notified that evening. Officers from the Polícia de Segurança Pública, PSP, the local public security police, were among the first to respond. Soon afterward, detectives from Portugal's Polícia Judiciária, PJ, the country's judicial police responsible for serious crimes, became involved. The initial task seemed straightforward. Determine whether Madeleine had wandered away, or whether someone had taken her. Investigators secured the apartment and began interviewing witnesses. They recorded where family members and friends had been sitting at dinner. They noted the timing of the routine child checks described by the group. Those timelines would become one of the most closely examined aspects of the investigation for years to come. According to statements gathered during the investigation, the adults had been checking on their children approximately every 20 to 30 minutes. One member of the group reported visiting the McCann apartment earlier in the evening and seeing the children asleep. Later, another member of the dining group said he had seen a man carrying a young child near the resort around the time Madeleine is believed to have disappeared. At the time, that observation did not immediately appear suspicious. People often carried sleeping children after a long day on holiday. Only later did investigators consider whether the sighting might be connected to Madeleine's disappearance. Over the following months and years, police examined numerous witness accounts. Some were found to be inconsistent. Others could not be independently verified. The challenge for investigators was separating reliable observations from mistaken recollections, a common difficulty in major missing person cases. The apartment itself became the center of the investigation. Police examined the bedroom where Madeleine had been sleeping with her younger twin siblings. According to the McCann's account, Madeleine's bed appeared undisturbed except for her absence. The twins remained asleep throughout the incident. Investigators documented the condition of the room, including the position of the window and shutters. Exactly how those features appeared, and whether they had been opened from inside or outside, became a matter of significant discussion during the investigation. Forensic teams searched for fingerprints, footprints, fibers, and other physical evidence. Like many crime scenes involving missing persons, the apartment presented investigators with difficult questions but few clear answers. No definitive evidence immediately established how Madeleine had disappeared. As the night continued, the search spread well beyond the Ocean Club resort. Police officers, volunteers, and local residents searched roads, fields, beaches, drainage areas, and nearby buildings. Vehicles leaving the area were monitored where possible. Officers interviewed residents and visitors who might have seen unusual activity. The following morning, search efforts expanded further. Dogs trained to locate missing persons joined the operation. Helicopters assisted from above. Media outlets in Portugal began reporting that a British child had vanished while on holiday. What initially seemed like a local emergency was quickly becoming an international story. As news spread across Europe, journalists gathered outside the resort. Television cameras documented the ongoing search almost around the clock. The McCann family found themselves at the center of intense global attention. Photographs of Madeleine appeared on television broadcasts, newspapers, websites, airports, and public billboards. People across the world began sharing her image, hoping someone might recognize her. Governments, charities, and members of the public offered assistance. The disappearance was no longer simply a local police investigation. It had become one of the most widely publicized missing child cases in modern history. Despite the growing search effort, investigators still lacked answers to the most fundamental questions. When exactly did Madeleine disappear? Had someone entered the apartment unnoticed? Had she left on her own? If an abduction had occurred, how had it happened without drawing attention? Every possible explanation had to be considered. In the days ahead, detectives would interview dozens of witnesses, reconstruct movements around the resort, and examine countless pieces of evidence. Some leads appeared promising. Others quickly faded. But with each passing day, the mystery deepened. The investigation was only beginning. By the morning of May 4, 2007, investigators faced a race against time. If Madeleine McCann had been abducted, every passing hour reduced the chances of finding clear evidence. If she had wandered away, she needed to be located quickly. Detectives had to consider every possibility while working with limited information. The investigation entered a new phase. One focused on reconstructing every movement made before Madeleine disappeared. Investigators began interviewing everyone connected to the events of May 3. The McCann family, their friends, Ocean Club employees, nearby residents, and holidaymakers were all asked to describe where they had been, what they had seen, and when they had seen it. Police created a detailed timeline. They noted when dinner began. They recorded the times family members said they checked on their children. They compared witness statements, looking for areas where accounts agreed, and where they differed. Minor differences are common in witness interviews, especially after stressful events. People often remember times and sequences differently. Investigators therefore looked for facts that could be independently supported. One question quickly became central. When was Madeleine last seen asleep in the apartment? Answering that question could narrow the window during which she disappeared. As investigators appealed for information, numerous people came forward claiming they had seen unusual activity near the resort. One report attracted particular attention. A witness said he had seen a man carrying a young child away from the area around the time Madeleine is believed to have disappeared. According to the witness, the child appeared to be asleep. At first glance, the sighting did not necessarily suggest a crime. Families on holiday often carry sleeping children after dinner. However, once detectives compared the reported time and location with the developing timeline, they recognized that the observation deserved careful examination. Investigators worked to identify the man. Years later, after extensive inquiries, Portuguese and British authorities concluded that this individual was most likely an innocent holidaymaker carrying his own daughter back to their accommodation. The sighting was therefore no longer considered evidence of Madeleine's disappearance. Even so, in the early days of the investigation, it consumed significant police resources. Search teams widened their efforts beyond Praia da Luz. Police examined nearby roads, construction sites, farmland, abandoned buildings, wells, and wooded areas. Specialist search dogs were brought in. Divers searched bodies of water. Officers interviewed drivers, delivery workers, and local business owners. Border authorities were alerted. Airports and ports received Madeleine's photograph. The hope was that someone, somewhere, had noticed something unusual. At the same time, investigators encouraged the public to report even seemingly insignificant details. In many criminal investigations, a single overlooked observation can become the key to solving a case. Thousands of tips began arriving. Some were useful. Many were not. Each had to be assessed carefully. As media coverage intensified, the case attracted worldwide attention. Television networks broadcast Madeleine's photograph repeatedly. Newspapers printed appeals for information. Government officials in both Portugal and the United Kingdom monitored developments closely. British police began providing assistance to the Portuguese investigation. Although Portugal retained primary responsibility for the case, cooperation between law enforcement agencies increased as the search expanded. This international collaboration would continue for years, involving multiple police forces, forensic specialists, and analysts. The enormous media interest created both opportunities and difficulties. On one hand, publicity meant millions of people saw Madeleine's face. Someone who recognized her, or recognized suspicious behavior, might come forward. On the other hand, investigators were flooded with reports from around the world. Many described possible sightings that ultimately could not be confirmed. Each report required time and resources to investigate. False leads are common in high-profile missing person cases, and detectives had to balance public optimism with careful evidence-based investigation. From the beginning, detectives explored multiple possibilities. Could Madeleine have left the apartment on her own? Had she become lost? Was she taken by someone who happened to notice the children had been left alone? Or had the offender planned the crime in advance? At this stage, investigators had no conclusive evidence supporting any single explanation. Rather than committing to one theory, police continued collecting witness statements, forensic evidence, and intelligence. This approach reflected a basic principle of major investigations: conclusions should follow the evidence, not the other way around. As days turned into weeks, the investigation became increasingly complex. No verified sightings of Madeleine emerged. No definitive forensic evidence explained what had happened inside apartment 5A. Each unanswered question seemed to generate several more. For Madeleine's family, the uncertainty was devastating. For investigators, it meant continuing to pursue every credible lead, no matter how unlikely it first appeared. The disappearance had already become one of the most challenging missing child investigations in Europe. Yet the most controversial chapter of the case was still to come. By the summer of 2007, more than 3 months had passed since Madeleine McCann vanished. Despite thousands of interviews, countless searches, and widespread international publicity, investigators still had no confirmed trace of the 3-year-old. The investigation had reached a critical point. Detectives had exhausted many of the most immediate leads. Witness reports had been checked. Search areas had been revisited. Forensic teams had examined evidence collected from apartment 5A and other locations. Yet the central question remained unanswered. What happened to Madeleine McCann? As frustration grew, the direction of the investigation began to change. In major investigations, police often reassess their theories when early lines of inquiry fail to produce results. Rather than assuming one explanation, detectives revisit the evidence, re-examine witness statements, and consider alternative possibilities. That is what happened in the McCann investigation. Portuguese detectives began exploring scenarios beyond stranger abduction. This did not mean they had reached a conclusion. Instead, they were examining multiple possibilities as part of their investigation. This shift attracted significant media attention and fueled intense public speculation. Investigators requested assistance from forensic specialists in the United Kingdom. Items collected from the apartment and other locations were examined using advanced forensic techniques available at the time. Reports later indicated that specially trained dogs had reacted to certain locations and items during searches. These dogs were trained to detect scents associated with human remains and blood. However, it's important to understand what such indications mean. A trained dog's alert is considered an investigative lead, not proof of what occurred. Any alert must be supported by reliable forensic evidence before investigators can draw conclusions. The forensic testing that followed did not produce evidence sufficient to establish what happened to Madeleine or to support criminal charges against anyone based solely on those indications. Years later, both British and Portuguese authorities continued to treat the case as unresolved. In September 2007, Portuguese authorities took a step that drew worldwide attention. Kate and Gerry McCann were designated as arguidos, a legal status in Portugal that gives a person specific procedural rights during an investigation. It is often translated as formal suspect, but it does not mean a person has been charged with a crime or found guilty. The decision immediately became international news. Newspapers and television programs around the world speculated about what it meant. The McCanns consistently denied any involvement in their daughter's disappearance. They publicly stated that their focus remained on finding Madeleine. As investigators continued their work, no charges were filed against either parent. The investigation was now unfolding under an extraordinary level of public scrutiny. News organizations reported on nearly every development. Some reports were accurate. Others relied on anonymous sources or unverified claims. Rumors spread rapidly across newspapers, television broadcasts, and online forums. This created a difficult environment for investigators. Public speculation can influence witness memories, generate false leads, and make it harder to separate verified facts from misinformation. Law enforcement officials repeatedly emphasized that only evidence, not media speculation, could determine what had happened. Even as the Portuguese investigation evolved, cooperation with British authorities continued. Police agencies exchanged information, forensic findings, and investigative leads. Specialists reviewed timelines, witness statements, and physical evidence. Investigators also examined reports from other countries, following up on possible sightings and tips submitted by members of the public. By this stage, thousands of leads had been received. Many were investigated thoroughly. None provided a confirmed answer to Madeleine's disappearance. In July 2008, after more than a year of investigation, Portuguese authorities archived the case. An archived case is not the same as a solved case. It simply means investigators concluded there was insufficient evidence at that time to continue active investigative steps under the existing file. At the same time, the Portuguese Attorney General lifted the arguido status from Kate and Gerry McCann. No charges had ever been brought against them. The investigation had not established what happened to Madeleine. For the McCann family, the decision offered little comfort. Their daughter was still missing. The central mystery remained unsolved. Although the official Portuguese investigation had been archived, the search for Madeleine did not end. The McCann family continued their efforts to raise awareness. Supporters maintained websites dedicated to the case. Age-progressed images of Madeleine were distributed internationally. Authorities in the United Kingdom continued reviewing information and assessing whether further investigative work might be possible. The case was entering a new chapter, one driven by renewed analysis, fresh technology, and the hope that evidence overlooked in the past might reveal new answers. By 2011, 4 years had passed since Madeleine McCann disappeared. The Portuguese investigation had been archived, but the case had never been solved. Thousands of documents, witness statements, forensic reports, and investigative leads remained scattered across years of police work. For many, the mystery seemed destined to remain unsolved. But in the United Kingdom, investigators believed there was still more work to be done. A fresh review of the evidence was about to begin. In May 2011, at the request of the British government, the Metropolitan Police Service launched a detailed review of the Madeleine McCann case. The project became known as Operation Grange. Unlike the original investigation, Operation Grange did not begin by assuming a particular theory. Instead, detectives started from the beginning, carefully examining every document, interview, photograph, and forensic report that had accumulated over the previous 4 years. Their goal was simple: find anything that might have been missed. Experienced detectives reviewed thousands of pages of evidence. Every timeline was checked again. Every witness statement was reconsidered. Every investigative decision was re-evaluated. Sometimes, fresh eyes can identify patterns that earlier investigators overlooked. As the review progressed, detectives identified numerous lines of inquiry that had either not been fully explored or had become possible because of advances in technology. Investigators examined telephone records, vehicle movements, financial information where relevant, new witness accounts, previously unidentified individuals seen near Praia da Luz. Modern computer systems allowed investigators to organize and compare vast amounts of information far more efficiently than had been possible in 2007. Small details that once appeared unrelated could now be connected and analyzed together. This process generated thousands of additional investigative actions. Some leads were quickly ruled out. Others required months of work. One of Operation Grange's priorities was rebuilding the timeline of May 3, 2007. Investigators carefully compared witness statements collected years earlier. They examined where people had been walking, driving, and dining. Detectives also revisited reports of individuals seen carrying children near the resort. One widely discussed sighting was eventually explained when investigators identified the man as a holidaymaker carrying his own daughter home after an evening at a children's club. Eliminating innocent explanations was an important part of the investigation. Every time detectives ruled out one possibility, they narrowed the remaining field. In October 2013, British investigators made a major public appeal. Through a televised reconstruction of events, detectives asked viewers to help identify several individuals who had been seen in Praia da Luz on the night Madeleine disappeared. The reconstruction introduced new timelines and encouraged anyone with information, even information that seemed insignificant, to come forward. Investigators emphasized that even a small detail might prove important when combined with other evidence. Following the broadcast, police received hundreds of new tips. Many were carefully investigated. Although most did not lead directly to Madeleine, the information helped detectives refine their understanding of events surrounding her disappearance. Throughout this period, British and Portuguese authorities continued sharing information. Investigations involving multiple countries require close cooperation. Evidence collected in one jurisdiction may become significant in another. Detectives exchanged reports, forensic findings, and intelligence whenever new information emerged. Despite earlier disagreements about investigative approaches, both countries maintained the same ultimate objective: to discover what had happened to Madeleine McCann. By the mid-2010s, investigative technology had improved significantly. Digital mapping tools became more sophisticated. Telecommunications analysis allowed detectives to better understand mobile phone activity. Data management systems made it easier to compare thousands of witness statements. Forensic science also continued advancing. Although technology cannot create evidence that does not exist, it can help investigators interpret existing evidence more effectively. Cases once considered impossible to solve have occasionally been reopened successfully because of scientific progress. That possibility kept hope alive. As Operation Grange continued, detectives gradually began focusing on individuals whose movements and backgrounds appeared to warrant closer examination. Years of reviewing evidence had narrowed the investigation. Authorities remained cautious. No public conclusions were announced without supporting evidence. But behind the scenes, investigators believed they were moving closer to understanding what might have happened. Then, more than a decade after Madeleine disappeared, the investigation took another dramatic turn. A new suspect entered the picture. His name would once again place the case at the center of international headlines. More than 13 years had passed since Madeleine McCann disappeared. For many people, the case had become one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. Although investigators had never stopped working, there had been no public breakthrough that explained what happened on the night of May 3, 2007. Then, in June 2020, authorities in Germany made an announcement that immediately captured worldwide attention. For the first time in years, investigators publicly identified a new suspect. His name was Christian Brückner. But despite the headlines, the announcement did not mean the case had been solved. Instead, it marked the beginning of another major phase of the investigation. Christian Brückner is a German national with a criminal history that includes convictions for sexual offenses and other crimes. He had lived in Portugal for periods of time and had spent time in the Algarve region around the years relevant to Madeleine's disappearance. According to German investigators, Brückner had been in the Praia da Luz area around the time Madeleine vanished. Authorities also stated that mobile phone records placed a phone linked to him near the resort on the evening of May 3, 2007. Investigators considered this one of several reasons to examine him more closely. However, being in the area alone is not proof of involvement in a crime. Police still needed evidence connecting him directly to Madeleine's disappearance. German prosecutors announced that they were investigating Brückner on suspicion of murder in connection with Madeleine's disappearance. Importantly, this reflected the prosecutors' investigative position. It was not a court finding, and Brückner has not been convicted in relation to Madeleine McCann's disappearance. Investigators appealed to the public for information about his vehicles, residences, associates, and movements in Portugal. They hoped that someone who had remained silent for years might now come forward. Law enforcement agencies from Germany, Portugal, and the United Kingdom continued to cooperate closely, sharing evidence and investigative findings. The identification of Brückner led to new search operations. Authorities searched locations in Portugal that investigators believed could be relevant. Years later, additional searches were conducted in areas near Praia da Luz as investigators continued following new leads. Police did not publicly disclose every detail of these operations, explaining that doing so could compromise the ongoing investigation. As with any active case, investigators balanced public transparency with the need to protect potential evidence. Many viewers naturally ask the same question: if investigators identified a suspect, why hasn't the case been solved? The answer lies in the difference between an investigation and a criminal conviction. Investigators have publicly described certain pieces of information that contributed to their focus on Brückner, including his presence in the Algarve region around the time Madeleine disappeared, mobile phone evidence placing a phone linked to him near Praia da Luz on the evening of May 3, 2007. His criminal history. Information gathered during years of international investigation. However, authorities have also indicated that they possess additional information that has not been released publicly. This is common in ongoing criminal investigations. Police sometimes withhold evidence to protect witnesses, preserve investigative strategies, or avoid influencing future court proceedings. Despite years of investigation, Christian Brückner has not been charged or convicted in connection with Madeleine McCann's disappearance. He has consistently denied involvement through his legal representatives. This distinction is essential. In any criminal investigation, a suspect remains legally presumed innocent unless proven guilty in court. That principle protects the integrity of the justice system and ensures that conclusions are based on evidence rather than public opinion. Throughout every stage of the investigation, Madeleine's parents have continued to express hope that the truth will one day be known. Each anniversary of Madeleine's disappearance has been marked by renewed appeals for information. The family has thanked investigators and members of the public who continue supporting the search. For them, the passage of time has not diminished the importance of finding answers. Today, the disappearance of Madeleine McCann remains an active investigation. Authorities in Germany, Portugal, and the United Kingdom have all stated at various times that investigative work continues. New searches, new witness interviews, and new forensic techniques remain possible as technology advances. Whether those efforts will ultimately provide definitive answers is still unknown. One thing, however, is beyond dispute. The case has reshaped the way missing child investigations are conducted around the world, highlighting the importance of international cooperation, careful evidence gathering, and persistence even when years have passed. That is how long investigators, journalists, volunteers, and Madeleine McCann's family have searched for answers. For most missing person cases, public attention fades after a few days or weeks. Madeleine's case was different. Her disappearance became one of the most recognized missing child investigations in modern history. It prompted changes in policing, inspired advances in international cooperation, and reminded families everywhere how quickly an ordinary evening can become a life-changing tragedy. Even today, the investigation continues. The disappearance of Madeleine McCann highlighted the importance of rapid response in missing child investigations. Law enforcement agencies around the world reviewed procedures for sharing information across borders, coordinating international investigations, issuing public appeals quickly, managing major media attention, organizing large-scale searches, preserving forensic evidence. The case also demonstrated how investigations can remain active long after public attention declines. As technology improves, evidence collected years earlier can sometimes be re-examined using methods that did not exist when a case first began. For investigators, no credible lead is considered too old to revisit. Since 2007, Kate and Jerry McCann have continued to campaign for answers about their daughter. Each anniversary of Madeleine's disappearance has been marked with public statements thanking investigators and supporters while renewing their appeal for information. Their message has remained consistent. They continue to hope that someone, somewhere, knows something that could help explain what happened on the night of May 3, 2007. Over the years, countless members of the public have contributed to search efforts by sharing information with police. While many tips have not led to breakthroughs, investigators continue to encourage anyone with credible, first-hand information to contact law enforcement. Cases that remain unsolved for many years present unique challenges. Witnesses may struggle to remember details accurately. Documents must be preserved carefully. Physical evidence can deteriorate. People move, change jobs, or pass away. At the same time, new technologies can create opportunities. Digital forensic tools, improved DNA analysis, and enhanced data management systems have helped solve other decades-old cases. Investigators continue to assess whether similar advances could assist in Madeleine's case. Few criminal investigations have generated as much public discussion as Madeleine McCann's disappearance. Books, documentaries, websites, podcasts, and online forums have presented countless theories. Some suggest stranger abduction. Others propose different explanations. However, it is important to distinguish between confirmed facts and speculation. Authorities have never publicly stated that the case has been solved. No court has determined what happened to Madeleine. And no one has been convicted in connection with her disappearance. Responsible reporting requires acknowledging those facts. The unanswered questions remain exactly that, unanswered. Authorities in Germany, Portugal, and the United Kingdom have all stated at various times that investigative work continues. German prosecutors have publicly maintained that they continue to investigate Christian Brückner as a suspect. At the same time, Brückner has not been charged or convicted in relation to Madeleine McCann's disappearance and continues to deny involvement through his legal representatives. Because the investigation remains active, law enforcement has not disclosed all of the evidence it has collected. This is a common practice in major criminal investigations. Keeping certain details confidential can help protect witnesses, preserve future investigative opportunities, and safeguard any potential court proceedings. The disappearance of Madeleine McCann continues to resonate around the world because it touches on deeply human questions. How can a child vanish without leaving a clear trail? How can such an extensive international investigation still end with uncertainty? And how do families continue searching for answers year after year? These questions have no easy answers. Yet they explain why the case remains the subject of ongoing investigation and public interest. History has shown that some cold cases are solved many years, even decades, after the crimes occurred. New witnesses come forward. Previously overlooked evidence is re-examined. Scientific advances provide fresh insights. Investigators working on long-running cases often emphasize one point. It only takes one credible piece of information to change the direction of an investigation. That possibility is why the search for answers continues. For nearly 2 decades, one question has remained unanswered. What happened to Madeleine McCann? Despite one of the largest missing child investigations in modern history, no definitive answer has emerged. Millions of people around the world have followed the case. Thousands of investigators have dedicated countless hours to reviewing evidence. Families, journalists, forensic experts, and members of the public have all hoped that one day the mystery would finally be solved. Yet today, the disappearance of Madeleine McCann remains officially unresolved. On the evening of May 3, 2007, Madeleine was put to bed with her younger twin siblings in apartment 5A at the Ocean Club Resort in Praia da Luz, Portugal. Her parents joined friends for dinner at a nearby restaurant and, according to their accounts, members of the group returned at intervals to check on the sleeping children. Shortly after 10 p.m., Kate McCann discovered that Madeleine was missing. From that moment forward, an ordinary family holiday became an international investigation. Searches began immediately. Local police responded. Volunteers searched nearby streets and beaches. As the hours turned into days, the investigation expanded far beyond Portugal. Authorities from multiple countries became involved. Madeleine's photograph appeared on television, in newspapers, at airports, and on billboards across the world. The hope was simple. Someone had to know something. Since 2007, investigators have followed thousands of leads. They have interviewed witnesses, analyzed phone records, reviewed forensic evidence, searched locations in Portugal, and revisited the case using new technology. British investigators launched Operation Grange, a comprehensive review that generated fresh investigative opportunities. German prosecutors later identified Christian Brückner as a suspect in their investigation and have continued to investigate him. At the same time, Brückner has not been charged or convicted in relation to Madeleine McCann's disappearance and has denied involvement through his legal representatives. These developments demonstrated that the case remained active. They did not provide a final answer. The disappearance of Madeleine McCann has influenced missing child investigations around the world. It highlighted the importance of rapid reporting of missing children, international cooperation between police agencies, careful preservation of evidence, thorough review of witness statements, re-examining old cases as technology improves, distinguishing verified facts from speculation. Investigators often remind the public that solving a case requires evidence, not assumptions. In high-profile investigations, rumors can spread quickly. Responsible reporting means presenting what authorities have confirmed while acknowledging what remains unknown. Behind every headline is a family. For Kate and Jerry McCann, the passage of time has never erased the absence of their daughter. Every birthday, every holiday, and every anniversary has served as another reminder that their search continues. In public statements over the years, they have consistently thanked investigators and supporters while expressing hope that the truth will eventually emerge. Their determination has helped keep attention on the case long after many investigations might have faded from public memory. People often ask why such a widely investigated case has not been solved. The answer is that complex criminal investigations depend on reliable evidence. Investigators cannot simply choose the explanation that seems most likely. They must establish facts that can withstand legal scrutiny. If key evidence is missing, contradictory, or unavailable, reaching a definitive conclusion becomes extraordinarily difficult. That is why, despite years of investigative work, the official status of Madeleine McCann's disappearance remains unsolved. History has shown that some mysteries are solved decades after they begin. Advances in forensic science, digital analysis, and international cooperation have helped resolve cases once thought impossible. For that reason, investigators continue to encourage anyone with credible, first-hand information to contact the appropriate law enforcement authorities. Even years later, one reliable piece of evidence can change the course of an investigation. As long as the case remains open, the possibility of new answers remains. The disappearance of Madeleine McCann is more than a mystery. It is a reminder of how fragile certainty can be, how important careful investigation is, and how persistence remains one of law enforcement's most valuable tools. Whether the complete truth is discovered tomorrow or years from now, the search for answers continues, not because of speculation, but because of the commitment to follow evidence wherever it leads. For now, the final chapter of this story has not yet been written. It remains one of the world's most enduring unsolved missing child investigations. If you found this documentary informative, consider sharing your thoughts in the comments. What aspect of the investigation do you think had the greatest impact on the search for answers?